Hi, I'm Jordan from Kettner Creative. In this video, we're going to compare the Yamaha AG06 audio mixer to the Mackie ProFX6v3 audio mixer. Both of these audio mixers are really great, but we're going to compare them and show you which is best for live streaming, home recording and studio use, and live events. If you're looking for current pricing or specs for either one of these devices, we do have links down in the description below on where you can find either audio mixer at a variety of online retailers so you can find the best price possible if you're looking to buy one of these. Now, before we get started into comparing and walking through either device, let's quickly go through the specs. On the Yamaha AG06, one of the XLR inputs can have phantom power, where on the Mackie ProFX6v3, both XLR inputs can get phantom power, so you can have two condenser microphones on the Mackie, but you can only have up to one condenser microphone on the Yamaha AG06. In terms of USB connectivity on both of these devices, they're both 24-bit and 192K, so very comparable USB specs there. Now, the Yamaha AG06 does not publish the gain specs for the two XLR inputs on this audio mixer, but comparing it to the Yamaha MG10XU that we have here, I can confidently say that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of between 60 dB and 64 dB. On the Mackie ProFX here, there is 60 dB of gain for both of those XLR inputs. Now, when we're talking about noise, the Yamaha AG06 has an EIN rating of -128, and the Mackie ProFX has -126. So the Yamaha is just a little bit quieter. I don't think most people would ever notice the difference between the noise level of either one of these preamps, but the Yamaha is just a little bit quieter on the inputs, so less background noise in your recording. Now, both of these audio mixers do have a power switch. On the Yamaha, it's just on the top here, and on the Mackie, it's on the back of the device. With the Yamaha, there is integrated software with this audio mixer, so if you do turn it off, you do have to count to 10 or something like that before you turn it back on if you want all the features of the audio mixer to work properly. In terms of powering these devices, the Yamaha AG06 is bus powered. The USB cable that connects it to the laptop is more than sufficient to power this device on its own. The Mackie ProFX6v3 does have an external power supply, so you do need a wall outlet. Now, if you are trying to bus power this from an iPad will not power the Yamaha AG06, so it does have a second USB power input here if you do want to record with an external power supply for the purposes of recording with your iPad. On the Mackie, you don't have that problem at all because you already require the external power supply to make it work, so you're not relying on that power from the iPad. In terms of built-in EQ and effects, the Yamaha AG06 does have digital effects. On one channel, there's compression and EQ with the reverb effect, and on the second channel, there's a built-in amp sim with another bank of the same reverb effect. On the Mackie ProFX6v3, you do get a two-band EQ with the high at 12K and the low at 80 Hz. You do get a low cut button here as well at 100 Hz for your XLR and quarter-inch inputs. And then there is this 24-channel effect here, so you can select whatever effect that you want and apply it to either one of your XLR or quarter-inch inputs on this mixer. In terms of compression, the Yamaha AG06 has it only available on the first XLR input, and there is no compression available on the Mackie ProFX6v3. Okay, so that's the specs of either one of these devices. Now let's just show you a quick run through. We do have more in-depth walkthroughs on either one of these audio mixers, but we're going to quickly walk through them just for the sake of being able to compare them at the end with our recommendation of which we prefer for live streaming, home recording, or live events. So in the Yamaha AG06 here, you do have 48 volts of phantom power, only available on the first XLR input, like we said. There is a pad here if you are plugging in a line level source, so you can bring that down to a more manageable input level. You can set your gain. You do have these buttons here with built-in compression and EQ. For both of those, you can control them with a partner software available from Yamaha. So you do need the software if you want to manipulate the default settings of either one of those compression or EQ or effect settings that are available. Then you can set your level for the channel. On the next input, instead of 48 volts of phantom power, we do have this guitar mode here, which lowers the impedance of an electric guitar or electric bass, and then you can set your gain. It does have an amp sim. It's not that good, but if you don't have anything better, it will get you started with electric guitar recording with the built-in amp module that comes with this audio mixer. Again, you can control those settings of that amp module with the built-in software that you can get from Yamaha. Then you can also set the same reverb effects and set your level for that second input. For inputs 3 and 4, you do get this stereo input here. So if you're plugging in a keyboard or a laptop or anything like that, I'd use these stereo 1/4 inch inputs here. You do have a toggle whether you're using a high or low input device here, and you can set that. And then you control the level with the level knob here. The next input here, we do have a stereo RCA input, and you can set again gain high or low. Then you can control that with the level knob here to control that RCA input. Now, if you are using a headset, you can plug your microphone and headphones in here, and that will override the first XLR input. So any gain, compression, effects, or volume that you set for your first XLR input will apply to this headphone input of your headset input. Again, if you do plug in headphones here, it will disable this 1/4 inch headphone jack. So this does have priority, but it does work well for a lot of video streamers or gamers that have a headset mic and they do want to use an audio mixer with that. It's a really nice feature there. You do get another input here for an aux input. So if you have an 1/8 inch headphone jack cable and you're connecting your phone to your audio mixer here, you can use that. This input does not have a level knob, so you do need to set the input level from your phone or your iPad or whatever device that you're plugging into there. This 2PC section here is really interesting. You do get 3 different modes on how your USB cable can interact with your computer. The first input mode is what I'm using right now. It's called Dry 1-2. This mode will ignore any compression or EQ that you're using on your microphone and just send the gain and level, the volume from your input source straight through to your computer, and it will send it separately between the first 2 channels of this audio mixer. So it'll ignore everything else. This is really great for singer-songwriters who are trying to multi-track record. You plug your microphone in the first input, you plug your guitar into the second input, and then you can multi-track record on your computer software. It works really well for doing something like that. The next input mix USB mode here will send a stereo mix to your computer of everything that's coming in. So if you have 2 microphones, a couple stereo inputs, your aux input, all of that will get mixed, and that final mix will get sent to your computer for recording. You won't be able to multi-track record using this method, but you will be able to capture the mix of a live set or something like that if you're a musician. The last option that you have here is this loopback mode. What this will do is if you're playing something off of YouTube or something like that from your computer, or you have game noise for your game live stream, this will bring it into the audio mixer. You can mix that USB input device, the volume from that, into your mix, and then it will send that whole mix back to your computer into OBS or something like that. If you put it into this loopback mode, you just have to be careful that you don't get feedback. You want to be using a piece of software like OBS that it won't send it back through to the USB input that's coming in. So you don't want to send this mixer to the computer and have the computer send that same stereo mix back to the computer. So just make sure that your routing is all set up correctly, but that is a very helpful tool there. If you're into live streaming, a lot of people like using that loopback mode there. Other than that, there's some pretty basic output volume options. You can connect it to studio monitors or balanced stereo outputs if you're doing live sound, say you're doing a wedding or something like that. You can do that with this audio mixer as well. Next, we have the Mackie ProFX6v3. There's 2 sets of combi jack inputs, just like what we have with the Yamaha AG06. You can plug in an XLR or 1/4 inch device. There's this high Z button here if you do have a line level input source or if you're plugging an instrument. So you can plug an instrument into either one of these. As I mentioned before too, you can turn on phantom power for the whole mixer here. So when you turn 48 volts of phantom power on, it'll apply to both XLR inputs compared to the Yamahas with only one. And then you can set your low cut if you wish. That's something that's not readily available on the Yamaha AG06. You have to do that on the software effects. You can tweak the EQ here. You can add your effects as we mentioned before. You can select your effect from one of these 24 presets. There is this cool stereo pan button. This is very similar to the dry channel 1-2 option that's available on the Yamaha AG06. What this does is it will basically pan channel 1 to the left and channel 2 to the right, so you can multi-track record. Unlike the Yamaha AG06, this would be, if the Yamaha AG06 is a dry channel 1-2, this would be a wet channel 1-2, meaning whatever you do to your EQ would get baked in and sent to the computer with your recording. On the Yamaha, the dry channel will not send any EQ or effect settings to your recording on the computer, so there's one distinct difference there. Other than that, there are very comparable line level inputs. You get stereo 1/4 inch level inputs. You get an aux level input that you can adjust accordingly. You do have the option of replacing this aux level input here with a USB level input from your computer in the same way that you can mix the USB level input on the Yamaha. So you can do that as well. But another cool feature that does come with the Mackie that's not on the Yamaha is this blend knob. What this blend knob allows you to do is you can monitor your audio software while you're recording. So you can listen and blend between what you're recording with your audio mixer with what you want to listen to from your audio software. So if you're doing a vocal overdub or something like that, this makes it really easy to set that balance. Perhaps even on the fly. Sometimes you're mid-recording, you just want to tweak the way your headphones sound while you're recording. You can easily do that. There's no monitoring options like that with the Yamaha AG06. With the Mackie as well, you do get this nice big LED meter here. This makes it really easy for you to set your gain. You don't need anything else. You can get a really good idea where your gain is sitting just by looking at this meter. In terms of outputs, you do have a headphone jack and you do have 1/4 inch main outs and balanced XLR outputs as well. Okay, so which one of these audio mixers do I recommend for live streaming, home recording, and live events? Let's start with live streaming. I prefer the Yamaha AG06 for live streaming. I think it has a lot of features that live streamers prefer. You can plug in your headset with your 1/8 inch inputs here. If you want to switch between your headset and your XLR microphone for various components of your live stream, maybe you only have a headset and you just want to add it to a mixer, it's a lot easier to do with the Yamaha AG06. With the compression, EQ, and effect settings on the Yamaha, you can save it into the mixer itself. So most of the time, once you're live streaming and you get all your settings figured out, you just want to save it and then call up those same settings every time. You can do that with this audio mixer, so it's a lot of people do prefer those types of features. Plus you have the loopback mode here, which is really popular for live streamers. Now the counterpoint to that is with the Mackie, even though you don't get compression with this audio mixer, I know myself personally, I like the ability to make quick EQ changes just by grabbing the knob. You can't quite do that with the Yamaha. On the Yamaha, if you did want to make changes, you'd have the Alt tab in your software, open up the window, and quickly make that change. But the good news is you can save it. So once your settings are all dialed in, you really shouldn't have to do that anyway. So my vote here goes with the Yamaha. Okay, next, what mixer do I recommend for home studio recording? For home studio recording, I recommend the Mackie over the Yamaha. On the Mackie, you can use phantom power on both of your XLR inputs. You can connect up to 2 condenser microphones, where on the Yamaha, you only have phantom power on 1. That's a very major limiting factor in a lot of home studios. If you're recording a stereo source like a piano, sometimes you'll stereo mic an acoustic guitar or something like that. If you have 2 condenser mics, you can do that with the Mackie, but you can't with the Yamaha. There's also a high Z pad on both of the inputs as well. It does have the EQ built into it. It has a stereo pan button, which is very comparable to the dry channel 1-2. A lot of people would count on that stereo pan button or dry channel 1-2 a lot if you're home recording, because you do want to multi-track 2 inputs at once with your computer so you can edit them after the fact. Plus, the big kicker here is on the Mackie, you get this blend knob. This blend knob is super important for monitoring while you're recording. A lot of people like setting the balance or tweaking the balance of their headphones between the zero latency inputs coming from your audio mixer and what's coming from your computer in your headphones so you can do your recording. This is a really helpful tool there. Plus, the LED meter here is a lot easier to set up your gain than it is with the Yamaha. The Yamaha, you have to use the software if you want that detailed monitor, and it's just not quite as practical for the home studio environment. So I do think that the Mackie is better for home recording just based on those features alone. Next, which mixer would I prefer for a live event? I'm going to give this one to Mackie as well for a lot of the same reasons as the home recording. With a live event, you won't really need the blend knob at all, but you do like flexibility and the ability to connect two condenser microphones at once compared to one on the Yamaha. You do have a lot more. You can do high Z on both. You do have EQ, which is a lot faster than with the Yamaha. I know if I'm at a live event, I don't want to be managing software on my laptop for EQ changes. I just want to quickly make changes here. Plus, the effects engine here is, again, super easy, and you can click it on and off really fast. I would say overall, just based on the phantom power on both inputs here, that does give you a lot more flexibility. Plus, you get two balanced XLR outputs, which anything live event related now, you're just connecting to powered speakers. So XLR cable that you don't have to convert from 1/4 inch like you would with the Yamaha is a lot more flexible for live events. So overall, to sum this up, I'd say the Yamaha AG06 is a better audio mixer. I'd prefer it for live streaming, but if you're home recording or doing a live event, I think the Mackie ProFX is a better choice for you with the phantom power and the XLR outputs on this audio mixer. If you have any questions about anything that I covered in this video, please leave a comment down in the comment section below. Again, if you do want pricing or specs, we do have some links down in the description below to help you. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.